Now, here are today's highlights. In the first half, before Amuro takes off in the core fighter, he and Kai Shiden have a heated exchange. That near quarrel with Kai serves as foreshadowing for the latter half. It starts when Kai throws a provocative remark at Amuro, but that's because Amuro had just ignored him. When Hayato asks, "Aren't you worried about Frau Bow?" Amuro answers, "There's Bright, Mirai, Sayla, and Ryu." Even though Kai Shiden is on the same bridge, Amuro lists everyone else there: Bright, Mirai, Sayla, Ryu, and pointedly leaves out Kai. In animation, every line fights the clock. There's no room for excess. If time were the issue, he'd have just said, "Bright and the others are here, so it's fine." Listing them one by one signals that he sees Kai but is deliberately ignoring him. And that really ticks Kai Shiden off. The direction could cut to Kai's face while Amuro is speaking and show him scowling, but it doesn't. That restraint is a matter of directorial pride. Doing that would undercut the very point of delivering such a long line in the first place. In short, Tomino is saying, "I want you to read this much." The lines hint enough for viewers to catch it. Alright, this is the second half of the complete Gundam lecture, Episode 15, The Core Fighter's Escape. Let's get started. Mobile Suit Gundam Episode 7, The Core Fighter's Escape. As I feared, this turned into a Last time we spent nearly 10 minutes just getting to the main story. At the end of the first half, the refugees started making a commotion. Amuro proposed launching the core fighter on a ballistic trajectory, and preparations began. Garma and Char analyzed the Gundam and were stunned by its performance. We pick up from there. The agitated refugees take Frau Bow and the others hostage. They lock up Frau Bow and the kindergartners, Katz, Letz, and Kika, saying they'll keep them as bargaining chips. Hearing this, Sayla, Ryu, and Hayato dash in and tell the bridge crew, "Bad news, Frau Bow and the kids were seized." But here's the thing. Amuro keeps cheerfully coordinating with a white-based soldier while everyone else is panicking, Bright even shouting, "What?" He even answers with a bright, "Yes." Federation soldier, how many hours in the core fighter? Amuro, 18 in simulations, 35 in training, 2 in combat. Federation soldier, going into combat on just that? Well, no help for it. Steel yourself. He answers like that. Even Hayato can't take it and confronts him. Hayato, aren't you worried? Amuro, about what? Hayato, your closest friend, Frau Bow, is being held hostage. That phrasing, your closest friend, Frau Bow, already hints at Hayato's own feelings. I care about her more, which swell toward the ending. It's great. Then Amuro, pushed by Hayato's anger, fires back. Amuro, Hayato, Bright, Mirai, Sayla, and Ryu are here. I trust them with white base. I'll just do what I can do. That's the scene I mean. Right. Kai's name still doesn't appear? Laughs. At that moment, the only ones on the bridge who get ignored are Lieutenant Reed and Kai. That's deliberate. In a 25-minute TV anime, there's no need to spend this long on a line unless there's a reason. He could say, Hayato, I'm leaving it to Bright and the others. Instead, he lists Bright, Mirai, Sayla, and Ryu, and conspicuously omits Kai. That becomes foreshadowing across the episode. Without carefully transcribing the lines, you'd miss this kind of setup. Follow each line, and it becomes clear. Amuro says, I'll just do what I can, which is correct but feels unnatural here. In this case, Hayato is right. Your closest friend has been taken hostage. Shouldn't you be worried? Yet Amuro keeps chatting and smiling with the soldier helping on his project. Why? Because he came up with this plan himself while consulting Omar Heng, and he's absorbed in it. Amuro has unusually strong pride and self-consciousness, yet as I said last time, back on Side 7 he was a weakling. A kid who couldn't find his place. Once he learned he could pilot the Gundam, people suddenly called his name and he had a place. For the first time he felt recognized and relied upon. On top of that, Amuro is as anxious as everyone. Refugees, Lieutenant Reed, Bright, maybe more so, because he's the one risking his life. In that state, he hit on an idea to break through the situation himself. It's telling. When a company struggles and someone says, this will make money, people often get swept along, even if they suspect it will fail. When cornered, people cling to plans, especially their own, to muster the will to live. Amuro here is the textbook case. He's only unafraid because he has his own fix. That's why he smiles. He's escaping into what he can do. But, from Hayato's view, Amuro is ducking the immediate conflict between refugees and crew aboard White Base. He's avoiding reality. And after Amuro snubbed only Lieutenant Reed and Kai, perhaps nursing a grudge, lets his sharp tongue fly. As Amuro says, I'll just do what I can, and heads out, Kai calls out that once he leaves White Base, he should be ready for an attack. Amuro suddenly flares up. Amuro, just what are you? Kai, no need to get hot, just giving advice. Sayla, Kai, yeah, I'm a weakling, not worth getting mad at. When Kai says that, Amuro, straining to hold his anger, replies, Amuro, I see. You're the adult here, Kai. Then stop making people feel In this exchange, Kai is actually right. He really should have been ready for an attack after leaving White Base, but Amuro wasn't. Launch a core fighter on a ballistic path, and Zeon will chase. The whole project ends in failure. So Amuro's idea, this might save us, was a non-starter from the beginning. Kai is, after all, a realist. So he naturally points out things like there being 100 non-combatants. What about their food? And that the core fighter lacks combat power, so Zeon will hit it before it reaches a ballistic arc. But at this point, Amuro only sees what suits him, so he snaps. Here, Kai is entirely right. Yet as TV viewers, we're primed to empathize with the protagonist. So we tend to read Kai as just mouthing off, a jerk. Sure, he becomes likable around across the Atlantic Ocean, but here he's still the hated guy. Kai is simply realistic. When the crew talk ideals, or Amuro hypes an unworkable plan, he calls them on it every time. We rarely give him credit for that. In the end, the core fighter is attacked by Char and the plan fails. Amuro acts calm, but he's just refusing to see what's inconvenient. As I said last time, only 3 characters clearly grow as people in Mobile Suit Gundam: Amuro, Char, and Kai. Others do become good, layered characters, of course. Frau Bow and Bright, certainly. Later we meet Slegar. Even Dozali and Garma show admirable ends. Meke turns out surprisingly good, and Rambaral is hugely popular. But you can't really call that growth. It's just that their inner good sides are shown. Who truly grows? Char. After betraying and killing his friend Garma, he's left with a snag in his soul. He tries to break free from his vendetta against the Zabi family, but after Amuro kills Lala, he can't reconcile with him, and carries that tangled emotion to the finale. That's unmistakable inner conflict, character growth. Amuro, too. From a placeless weakling to someone with a place. Then he learns those who recognized him saw only his ability. He sulks and runs away from White Base. Even after returning, he keeps changing. The sad reunion with his estranged father, and more. It's growth through loss. He's forced to grow because he loses so much. Likewise, Kai Shiden. At this stage, he only wields correct logic and gets misunderstood. But he's quite clever. Frankly, he represents us otaku. The character who most embodies the otaku in Gundam isn't Char or Amuro, it's Kai. How does Kai find his place? Not by shouldering things with his own ability like Amuro. He too loses someone dear and tries to abandon the White Base crew, only to realize he can't. After a long detour, he gradually stakes out his position. So only those 3 truly grow, and, in my view, they're the real leads of Gundam. Still, Kai's role here is like Jiminy Cricket in Disney's Pinocchio. In Pinocchio, a fairy gives life to the wooden puppet, but he can't tell right from wrong, so a cricket, the embodiment of conscience, becomes his friend. That's Jiminy Cricket. But the cricket is powerless. All he can do is nag in Pinocchio's ear. So Pinocchio ignores him, does as he pleases, and lands in trouble. Jiminy Cricket also appears in Shotaro Ishinomori's manga, Android Kikaider. The hero Kikaider has a blue right half and a transparent left half. In the story he's called unfinished and ugly. If he could transform into a complete robot, the whole body would be the blue side. Because he can't, Half the machinery shows an ugly body, as the story says. Why so ugly? Because Kikaider has a conscience circuit built in, so he can't become a perfect machine. The circuit lets him know right from wrong. That conscience circuit is named Gemini, after Jiminy Cricket. Android Kikaider, 5 volumes, is an amazing manga. I'd like to do a full series breakdown someday. It's a wanderer's tale of a non-human who has a human heart, as in Pinocchio. Besides the incomplete Gemini conscience circuit, there's another, a submission circuit that just wants to obey others, called Yes Sir. Laughs. A Kikaider equipped with both Gemini and Yes Sir appears near the end, leading to the grand climax. Within Mobile Suit Gundam, Kai Shiden serves as that Gemini, the conscience circuit. If anything, Mirai, another realist, embodies the kinder side of conscience, while Kai takes on the harsher, heartless-sounding jabs. Now the core fighter's launch prep finishes, and the countdown begins. This is meticulous direction. On 10-9, we see Bright holding a gun, facing the refugees. On 8-7, the refugees glare, so you brought guns, while behind them, Frau and the kids relax, happy that Bright has come. On 6-5-4, Bright and the others move to the refugees. Only Mirai remains on the bridge, with Amuro on a small monitor. Then on 3-2-1-0, the camera pans up from the control stick to a close-up of Amuro Ray's face. It both explains the situation, and by pushing in on Amuro during the countdown, gathers all threads toward the protagonist attempting the ballistic flight, purely through imagery. Several dramas are unfolding in parallel. At 0, the core fighter blasts out of white base. It's a great shot. Up to now, we've had cramped shots, faces pressed together in the refugee room, and tight moves from a close-up of Amuro's arm up to his eyes. Lots of pressure in the framing. So at 0, when the core fighter streaks out, the frame suddenly opens up. The sky is painted with spaces deep indigo above and atmospheric clouds. White base tilts upward, and the core fighter shoots straight out like a bullet. Back then, the draftsmanship wasn't top tier, and there was no CG. So they relied on composition and layout alone to deliver strong images. The storyboards show it. In the latter half of the series, that early episode care wanes, and compositions repeat more often. But in this first core, they're great at alternating between clean, open shots and tightly compressed ones. Alright, thanks for watching. That's the end of the free segment today. Sorry that my sudden Kikaider detour ran so long. But this lecture aims to approach Mobile Suit Gundam from every angle. so expect more tangents. Thanks for sticking with me. That last shot, core fighter firing from white base like a missile, was truly cool. In fact, the operator says white base can't reach orbit, but it can still hit Mach 3, maybe even Mach 5, since it climbs up to the stratosphere. So it can reach those speeds, just not orbital velocity, about 8. White base itself is ascending at almost 1 to 2 km per second, and on top of that, it fires the core fighter, a scene you can mentally embellish as pretty awesome. Why dwell so much on one shot? Because the core fighter's escape aired in May 1979. And May 1979 was during Isao Takahata's Anne of Green Gables run, where Yoshiyuki Tomino joined as a storyboard artist. May was when he was boarding Anne, so he was doing both Gundam and Anne at once. At the time, Tomino wasn't a total newbie. He had his own series, but as a director, he was still learning from Takahata as a kind of apprentice. Just before that May, Hayao Miyazaki left Anne of Green Gables. Miyazaki handled episodes 1 to 15, then left to make the Castle of Cagliostro. As a result, not the draftsmanship per se, but the layouts dipped. Tomino saw that. What made Heidi, Girl of the Alps, and 3,000 Leagues in Search of Mother great was Miyazaki's layout, that sense of composition. After studying how vital composition is in animation, he moved into Gundam. At Sunrise then, you couldn't always draw lavish backgrounds, and even a genius like Yoshikazu Yasuhiko couldn't draw every cut. Still, they wanted standout shots at key points. To achieve that, Tomino first thought in terms of composition. Hence, scenes like today's. Alright, let's move to the paid second half. Ready? How did Char react so swiftly to the core fighter's launch? We'll begin the second half of the Gundam lecture now. Please enjoy.